Welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We're your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
I Create Daily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. I Create Daily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hello, and welcome to the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their art. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora. And today we're joined by Alexis Paris. A dancer for 15 years, Alexis made the leap to public speaker, host of the Empowered Millennial podcast, and author of Why I Quit College to Learn. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you so much for having. Super excited about this episode. I know it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So thanks so much for inviting me on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and doing this podcast. So let's dive in. What is your background? What is your story? So obviously you were dancing for 15 years, but how did you make that leap? It's a big decision, especially as a young woman in the world that decides, I'm just going to quit college and do this entrepreneur thing. So
right, of course. It definitely is a major, major leap. In my sophomore year of college, I was in Florida. I was in Tampa, Florida, and I started to do the business side of network marketing. That's really where it started for me. And because I was doing the business side with my mom, we had to do personal development. And before that, I didn't know what that was. And so then I was handed my first personal development book, which was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And so I read it, and I read the entire thing. I was like, oh my goodness, like this information is crazy, you know, and it really helps you transform your life, and it's not being taught in school, right? So I was like, all right, so who's going to teach personal development? Who's going to share it with young people? Because we don't know where it is or how to get to it, right? So as I started to read more and I started to attend events, it really became clear to me who I was, my purpose, what I was created to do. I was able to build my confidence, because before that I was super introverted. And as a dancer, I had a certain level of confidence, but it wasn't a type of confidence that I could go and meet someone and say, hey, my name's Alexis, and then say words after, you know? So I was really building my true confidence. And so once I understood that I'm here to share those messages of personal development globally, I knew that I needed to be on a path that supported that. And currently, I was on the path to become a professional dancer. Like I went to performing arts middle school, performing arts high school, and I majored in dance while I was in college. So I was on that route, and I was like, all right, what path is going to get me to my overall mission? And I understood that after going to this one personal development event, my first one, invested like $200 of my own money. I was like, oh my goodness, right? So I went and I heard Darren Hardy speak live and share his story, and how a lot of greats didn't go to school. They did it without a degree, you know? And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it as well. I'm super driven, focused, I'm disciplined, so I can make it happen. So that's when I first contemplated leaving school. And it was a battle in my mind, because I know what society says, and I know the pressure that comes with it, you know, with your peers and with other family members and with people who look up to you. I know that pressure. So it was a battle within my mind, but I knew within my spirit, and I knew deep down that if I stayed there, I wouldn't have been happy. If I stayed there, I wouldn't have fulfilled my fullest potential. So that's when I decided to leave and to start, you know, to be a full-time entrepreneur and to really pursue the mission of spreading these messages globally.
Fantastic. And the world is going to be a better place because of it, because of you making that decision, because the world needs so many more positive messages, and from a young female voice like yours, who, you know, because what you're saying is you're not talking about stopping education. You're
right.
talking about continuing education that's very specific to your chosen career path, what you need to learn and do. Because obviously, I mean, that you discovered this path by going to conferences and events that were for self-development, right?
Right, exactly. And that's such a great point, to understand that formal education is great. It's phenomenal, especially if your dream aligns with that. Like if you want to become a doctor, a surgeon, like you have to go to school, you know, you have to get that training. But however, you also must know that self-education is even more important. Jim Rohn said formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. Right? You have to develop yourself, your mindset, your character, your habits. You have to do those things so you can live a fulfilled life. So I don't want to spread the message like, quit college, school sucks. You know, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like you need to do your self-education as well, in addition to, and, you know, prioritize that too, because that's what allows you to become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So now you have had already an opportunity to be for so many others, in particular young people your age and younger, as well as, you know, within the range, millennials, to be for them the motivation and motivator and inspiration that you received from Darren Hardy, from the Compound Effect, and from others. So how does that feel?
It's amazing. It's really humbling, and I'm so grateful that I can be that person that people look up to. Just a couple of days ago, I got a message from someone that said, "Hey, you have no idea how your videos help me to keep going, to push past fear." And that's just one of the biggest rewards, to have people, you know, really pursue what they want as a result of listening to what I put out, and really that it's helping people and it's changing lives, because that's why I do it. You know, when it gets tough, when it gets difficult, I don't think about me. I think about the people that need the information that I have. I think about the people that will receive permission to live their best life when I show up. You know, so it's such a great feeling. It's so humbling, and it's what pushes me to continue to show up every day.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And when you're speaking, do you speak mostly to younger millennial crowds, or is it a wide range? Do you speak at schools? And I'd be interested in, like, when you do speak at venues with younger people who've been sort of trained or grown up their whole life hearing, like, you have to go to school, you have to do this specific route that, you know, there's so many more options. What is the response you get from the range of people you speak to, from older people who still really are for this traditional route, versus the younger people who might be a little more hungry to try something different and try something new?
Right, that's a great question. So I have like a wide range of people who consume my content. So like on Facebook, I have like the older people, and on Instagram, it's like the younger people, right? But with the older people, they have, like, when I share my content, when I share what I'm learning, when I share and I teach them what I've learned, it really opens up their mindset, and they see like, oh my goodness, I have other options. I can do something else for myself. I have permission to live my life the way that I want to. So they're able to really receive it, and it gives them like a new mindset. So they're really accepting to the messages that I share with them, mainly because they haven't heard of it before, and it's coming from someone who is young. You know, them being able to see me teach it in the way that I do, and with the wisdom that I have, it's really shocking and inspiring to them to say to themselves, like, yo, like, what am I doing? If she can do it, you know, what am I doing, right? And then with the younger people, they're really excited about the information that I have as well. When I had an opportunity to speak at like an open mic night and to share my story with them and what I'm doing, and it gives them hope. It's like, oh my goodness, there are other younger people who are doing great things too. Yeah. You know, and it gives them something to look forward to. And because I'm young with them, I'm relatable with them as well. So I can say, hey, I know the pressures that come with being young and doing something purposeful, but you have to decide to be purposeful anyway. Yes, you know, there's a pressure to go out and party and to drink and all of this stuff and do the normal things that normal teenagers do, you know. But if you want to live your best life, you have to become the best version of yourself. And so when they see me, they're like, oh my goodness, it's possible for me too.
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead. Yeah, I think the key word there was normal. And that is that, you know, so if you want to live an average life, then you do the average things.
Right.
live an extraordinary life, then you do extraordinary things.
Exactly.
And I love the point that you mentioned a second ago of you have to be purposeful, because I think a lot of times we look at like passion and purpose as sort of an object or a type of thing that you do, as opposed to being purposeful about whatever you do. And so whether it's, whether you're going the traditional route or a creative route or an entrepreneurial route, whatever you do, it's like bringing purpose into all those actions.
Yes, agreed. It's so important to have like an intention behind whatever you're doing, not to just do it mindlessly, but to have an intention, to have like an end goal set in mind so that there's a purpose behind doing it,
Yeah, you mentioned, or along with that, and what you mentioned earlier about you've always been motivated and disciplined and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that in and of itself, that's you, that comes from the inside out. Do you have any sense of, like, literally, has that been all your life, or do you have any memory, a conscious connection of when that, catalyzed in your life, like when it is you made that decision that that's who you were and who you wanted to be?
Right, that's a great question. So it was mainly built in me because of the consistency that I had with dance. So the fact that I was always in a dance class, I showed up even when I was sleepy, I performed. It was difficult and I did it. Like that history that I've had and that training that I have has molded me into a disciplined individual and a hardworking individual. However, when I decided to be an entrepreneur, it's a whole different level, because when your parents are taking you to, your sports and all of that, that's your parents controlling, what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, you don't have to answer to anyone. You have to make yourself do the things that you don't want to do. You have to make yourself show up. So of course, I went to a whole new level when I decided to be an entrepreneur, because you realize, like, if you don't do anything, nothing's going to get done. And it's up to you to make everything happen, So in the beginning, my parents were able to put that within me with the decisions that they made as I was growing up. And then as I became an entrepreneur, I made the conscious decision to say, hey, like it's up to me to make this happen. So I have to be even more disciplined. I have to work even harder because it stretched me in ways I did not know I was capable of stretching, but it's super important that you do those things to grow.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's such a good point. And we're going to talk about habits in a moment, but I was wondering, like, what was your parents' reaction and your immediate peer group reaction to your life changing or altering from the full-time professional dancer? Like, when you dedicate that much of your life, you did it for 15 years, that seems like a pretty set trajectory, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. Like, oh, you're going to be a great dancer. That's your life. And so when you made that turning point, what were the people around you? What was their feedback, input, reactions?
Yeah. Phenomenal question. So thank God, I'm so blessed that my family, my parents, they're absolutely amazing. So they have an entrepreneurial mindset as well. So as I was growing, as I was doing like network marketing, I was reading and all of that started because my mom started doing it first. So my mom took me on that journey. And because I was on that journey with my mom, right? Because I was on that journey with my mom, when I told her, like, I don't think school's for me, they're like, okay. They were supporting me. They said, hey, you can come back home, but you have to grind. I was like, yeah, I got that. Right? So they were really, really supportive. And of course, there was other people, when I shared with them that I was leaving school, they freaked out. They said, no, like, take out more loans. I said, no. So, of course, there's those people that will freak out because they have like that fixed mindset on the traditional route. But my parents were so supportive, and the people that I hold close to me and they know me, and I shared it with them, they understood that I would be okay, and that whatever I do, that I'll be successful in that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah, definitely relatable.
Yeah. We were talking about motivation and habits yesterday. You want to pick up on that?
Yeah, so we were talking about motivation and habits and building habits and surrounding yourself with those important key players in your life that help you level up, and the people who know that you're going to be fine no matter what you do, and that's important as well. And so when you moved back home, whatever you did, what were the habits you put in place for yourself daily to do the showing up? Because you said it, it was harder at first, and you didn't have any more the, parents shuttling you or whatever. You didn't have the outside accountability.
You had to create the structure for yourself. And so you had, for the first time, perhaps like the opportunity to do or not do. And you had to find a different kind of discipline too, because dance is it's mental, emotional, but it's predominantly physical. Whereas entrepreneurship is predominantly mental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it's such a good point. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Mentally, it's like crazy, So habits that I put in place. So one of them is gratitude. Every single day I write down 10 things I'm grateful for. So that keeps me positive. It starts my day off in a positive way, and it makes me conscious of everything that I have currently surrounding me that I'm grateful for, and it kind of keeps me in a positive mentality and allows me to operate from a place of positivity and joy and love. If you don't know the things that you're grateful for, you'll become bitter, think that everyone's against you and you don't have anything going for you. But that is a habit of gratitude that I've always kept. And another habit of journaling. Like, I journal every day. Like, it's so important to me to get what's going on out, to document those things and to release any like tension or emotion or whatever is going on paper. So journaling, gratitude, and also I work out every day. I've always had that discipline and that like eagerness to be in the gym, but it really gets everything moving. Like, when you wake up, sometimes you're not feeling it. If you can get up and get your body moving, like your brain wakes up, your body's moving, you have energy flowing, like it gets your day started. So working out is definitely another habit. Even though like I don't have dance, like dance would automatically be my workout because it was tiring, right? But now I consciously make the effort to work out every day. That's definitely helped. And then, like you said, because it's a mental effort, just always keeping my why in mind. Why did I start? Because it's so easy to give up. It's easier to give up than it is to keep going. It's easier to look sideways and be like, hey, they're doing other things and they look like they're having fun. Why not I do that? Because it can be difficult as an entrepreneur. So to always keep my why in mind. Why did I get started? Why did I choose this path? Why did I go against the grain? Why am I setting myself apart? All of those whys keep me grounded as well. And then also one more thing. I'm also very spiritually grounded as well. So keeping that routine in place always keeps me, grounded and motivated and strong and strengthened to continue to move forward.
Definitely.
Wonderful. So sounds very well-rounded. And one thing I did want to ask, outside of the physical discipline of dance and showing up for that in your life, what else did you bring forward into entrepreneurship that you learned from your dance outside the physical motivation of just being there?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Ooh, thinking.
That was an on-the-spot question. But
I love it. No, it's good. One thing about dance that I loved is that I could always just be me. I never tried to be anyone else. I never, felt the need to imitate someone else or clone myself or anything like that. Like, anytime I'm dancing, I feel like I'm 100% me, and I don't feel judged or anything like that. And so when I decided to do entrepreneurship, I took that with me as well, like to be 100% me and to be unapologetic about that, not to try and copy someone else or, compare myself to someone else, but to know that I am enough in this journey and to really live that truth and to be 100% me throughout this entire process.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. You may have picked up part of my thought is because as she was talking about, the gym and working out and exercise, one of the connections I was making is how you discover, through dance and fitness, you discover that to be physically strong makes you definitely more mentally and emotionally strong. And in particular, through dance, you learn a lot about the importance, the vitalness of vitality, whichever is correct, and this of flexibility. So to be strong and flexible, both, is essential in entrepreneurship. So it's like and you can take those lessons from the gym. And so it's like, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you're feeling even down on a given day, because everybody has down days, there's just something magical about fitness and how being strong, like making ourselves stronger, helps us emotionally and mentally be stronger as well.
Yeah, that's such a good parallel. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Because like you said, like to be a dancer, to be successful at it, you have to be strong, right? Your body needs to be strong. You also have to be flexible as well. And in entrepreneurship, you have to be mentally strong. Like it's going to be a battle in your mind, and it all starts there. But you also have to be flexible, because sometimes the plan that you had in the very beginning did not work out. Right? So, like I have so many scenarios where I thought this idea was going to work out and it didn't. Right? So you have to be flexible with, your journey as well.
Yeah, kind of like on stage choreography, how it's supposed to go a certain way, but if it doesn't, stop in the middle of the performance.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
You have to be adaptable and segue. Yeah. Well, so you shared so many so much good advice from your personal experience on, basically how to stay positive, how you're motivated. And one of the things, again, we were talking about yesterday is when you get into the flow of creating and of being disciplined and structured and motivated and getting things done through daily practices, it's so much easier to do more of the same. In other words, that's where you find the motivation. So a lot of people sit around and wait for motivation to find them. And what part of what you're describing are daily habits and a lifestyle that generates within it its own kind of motivation.
Yes, that's so good. It's essential, because if you wait around for motivation to just hit you in the face, you'll be waiting there for like ever, right? Usually it doesn't happen that way. So you have to have things set in place that within itself, like you said, produce that motivation to continue to push forward. And one thing that I would also encourage people to think about is like, what goals do you have? Those should also motivate you to show up and to do what's necessary. Like yesterday, so I'm writing my second book. Yesterday, I was like, all right, I need to write. I need to take out some time to write. And I was not feeling it. Okay. I did not want to do it. But I have this major goal to move to LA in July. And so I went on YouTube and I started watching videos about LA. And I started listening to people's takeaways from LA and their experience while they're there. And that got me excited again. Right. So as I got that excitement, then I was like, all right, I'm ready to write. Yeah. So you have to have not only those habits, but those goals that get you excited to continue on that path too.
Where are you living now?
I'm in New Jersey right now.
Okay. Have you ever been out to LA?
No, I've only been to, San Francisco. Yeah, I went there and I loved California. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to live here. And then I had this individual that I went on this business retreat with who already had plans of moving to LA. So I was like, all right, let's be roommates, And so that worked out. Yeah.
That's one of your goals. And you mentioned earlier you spoke a good bit about your why, which again, for someone, you're 21, right?
Yes.
For someone so young, it's just in and of itself a major accomplishment, like a major life accomplishment to already be at that place. And it doesn't mean that that's it forever, but that's the direction you're going in, just like LA is the direction you're going in next in terms of physical destinations, and who knows where that will lead along the, not only in your goal to LA, something else would come up, but then once you're there, it's like maybe not forever, but that's the next step, right? But one of the things that you mentioned several times is your why. So could you elaborate on what is your why?
Yes, of course. So my why of why I got started, why I did all of these things is because I want to make sure that people know what personal development is. I don't want people to come across me and not know what that is, because that unlocks your ability to become successful. I strongly believe that personal development is an irreplaceable ingredient to success. If you want to have a fulfilled life, if you want to have amazing relationships, if you want to do well in your career, if you want to be confident, if you want to be able to love yourself, like all of that is personal development. And I thought about, successful people who are miserable. Like, why are they miserable? They have money, they've had accomplishments, they've done things, but certain area of their life they're like failing, right? And what if they did personal development in those areas? Would they be happy, right? So I think about all the people that I'm connected to, and I think about how my life is not really my own, but it's my gifts that are going to help other people to live their own lives, right? So I'm not here just to live for myself, but I have gifts within me that can help other people live their best life. And so I understand that and have a deep conviction about that, and how, because it's not taught in school, and that's like my big thing. Like, I was so like aggravated and like frustrated that it wasn't taught in school. I was like, all right, guys, like, we need this, right? So like, it is huge. Like, without it, like, your life is not going to be the best that you want it to be. And so that's why I show up, because I want people to live their best life and know that you need this information. Like, don't go in your life without knowing what this is, because it's so important, and it really unlocks a whole lot of freedom and abundance within your life as well.
Yeah, that's a passion we share, as well as Tony Robbins. I'm sure you're familiar with Tony Robbins, and he says that basically he lives to help others find their motivation and their joy, and ignite their lives, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so big, and because when you see people struggling and suffering, it doesn't have to be that way. Right. Really, it's just a matter of turning that dial just a little bit, and you can get out of that, through the efforts that you make. And there's so much available to help people make that, such as your books. So let's talk about that. Okay, so the first one is a fantastic title. Yeah. So just a little background that you may not know. So Devani and her brother were homeschooled for most of their education, and also no college because it hasn't fit with the career goals or trajectory. In other words, it hasn't been necessary. Education, absolutely, all the time. But it's relative, it's autodidactic, it's specific to what it is we need to focus on at any given time. So part of Devani's homeschooling was to start a social marketing business or social marketing services beginning when she was 15, as part of a homeschool entrepreneurial learning project, and so, and that's morphed into her business ever since. And then, we have a lot of things that we share in common. And so then that's when we started I Create Daily this year. Actually, last year now. Yeah, last year now. 2017 right. So we especially resonated with the title, Why I Quit College to Learn. And again, we've already established that, education is fantastic. It just, college may not be it. And right now it's the old school, literally and figuratively, where so much of education is already irrelevant by the time that people graduate. And what especially is irrelevant is it's insane to go into college, to get a good job, to come out and pay your college debt. That doesn't make sense. And so tell us about your book, how that came to be, how you came up with the title, and then about your second book. Yeah. So,
okay. So yes, why I quit college to learn. So I started writing that like in the very beginning when I started discovering personal development. Like, I was learning all of these things, and I had so many epiphanies about how life should be. And I really started questioning why people were going on this traditional route. And I challenge people to ask questions, right? To dare to ask questions, right? Don't just assume that the mundane, normal, traditional path is for you. Don't assume that, but to ask yourself questions, right? So I had like a series of epiphanies. That's what the book is like laid out in, a series of epiphanies that really opens up your mindset, and to ask yourself, is college for me? It may be for a lot of people, but it may not be for you, so I kind of laid it out that way and wanted to introduce personal development to young people, and see like, this is what this means. These are the type of questions that you need to ask. This is why you need to discover who you are, so that you don't get on a path that you never should have been on in the very beginning, right? So like, I imagined people reading this book before they went to college, before they decided to go there, because what if you're there and you're utterly miserable, and you accumulate all this debt that you have to pay off later, right? That would be terrible, right? So I would like want people to read that book so that they can, you know, open up their mindset and understand that there's a whole new level of education that you've never heard of before. And so, yeah, so that's the first one.
Yeah.
And then
before you move on, let me just ask, so then you kind of came up with a title on your own?
okay, so I had a mentor, and I was coming, I don't remember what the original title was, but I had a mentor that helped me formulate that title, because we wanted it to be something that was bold, something that sparked your curiosity as well, and something that was controversial too, because we want to get people thinking, right? To not have so many people thinking for you, because that's what happens when you go to school and you don't ask questions. You have all these educators and your parents and people that are in your circle think for you, and you never think for yourself. So we wanted to have a title that, you know, sparked people's curiosity. And I was like, what's that mean? you know? So yeah, I definitely had someone help me come up with that title. Yeah.
Did you self-publish, or did you go through a publisher?
I self-published. Yeah, I like to know what's going on with my stuff. you know?
That's the way to go. And so many of the people, like, we tune into a lot of podcasts. It's one of our favorite, you know, ways to hang out with people who are doing things that we admire or aspire to, and that we want to learn from. And, you know, we've heard from the gamut from new authors like yourself. My husband is a fiction writer who is working on his second book, self-published. And we've also heard, you know, like Tim Ferriss and James Altucher and all these people who are many times multiple, celebrity kind of level authors, well-known authors. And they've gone both routes, and they, you know, praise both routes. Like, there's a benefit to each. It just depends on your needs in the moment. And so in general, for new young authors who don't yet have like an established presence, you know, in the mainstream, definitely doing it yourself. And then some of them say, then, you know, let them come to you for a book deal, go that route for a book, you know, get into the mainstream limelight, so to speak, you know, and then you can always go back to your own. So that could be, you know, an option as you become better known after your second book as well.
Yes, I definitely agree. To get that experience, to know what that means, to have someone else, you know, market it and all of that, I think that's huge too, because so many opportunities could come from, you know, a publishing company as well. So I definitely, and like when your resources start to expand, because that can be costly, right? So like when your resources start to expand and you have that leverage and you have, you know, that opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Definitely. So, okay, book 2. Tell us about book 2.
Oh, yeah. All right. So book number 2, I'm still working on a title, but I know that it's going to brand my podcast, because I want the message of Empowered Millennial to be spread globally. And I want it to be known that Empowered Millennial is not just specific to an age group or where you come from or how you were raised, although it can be, because obviously it says millennial, but it's more than that. It's a mentality that allows you to experience abundance and freedom. It's a mentality that understands that you have to develop self-love and confidence and certain success principles that are going to help you become the best version of who you are. And I just believe that millennials, like, we have the opportunity to change the trajectory of how people do things and how people operate. And in this generation, we have that opportunity to do something completely different. So that is going to be the second book. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be a good one. And it's going to be, I want it to be out by March.
Okay, good. That's going to be my next question. Out by March. Well, let us know for sure when it comes out, and we'll definitely give you a plug on our social media and all of that. Because back to the traditional publishers for a moment, you know, you mentioned that, you know, they do the marketing for you, but really they don't do the marketing for you unless you're really a big guy already, you know, and unless you're a big namer. They then come to you these days when it is you already have your platform and you already have built what you're building now. So, you know, in which case at that time you don't really need them. But
which is a good place to be, because if you don't really need them and yet can still leverage the prestige of their name while it lasts, before the playing field is too shifted, then it just leapfrogs you. But you also know that I don't need this as much as you need me to have a good name on your list too.
Yeah, so it works both ways. But that said, I mean, that's not to disparage publishing firms, because publishing companies, because we love books, we love publishers, and it's just that the industry's changing, and they have done tremendous good for so many authors. But as we know, that the middleman has been removed, basically, so that there's no barrier. The barrier of entry is a willingness to do the work.
Yeah.
Really, there's no other barrier of entry for anyone seeking to become an author, and eventually they can liaison with publishers, and it'll be interesting to watch how the publishing. Because I don't think that they're going to go away entirely. I think that the best ones will morph, and shift into doing other things and doing it in different ways. Perhaps.
Adaptability.
Yeah, adaptability.
Exactly. I love that.
Well, let's see. Did you have anything else for now?
Well, no. Both those books sound exciting.
Oh, I do. Sorry, I remember now. Oh, you mentioned the podcast and the book and branding it potentially after the podcast of empowering millennials. So you'll have the podcast, you'll have the book, and those are two just like almost like guaranteed entries for you into a wider speaking platform. So what speaking aspirations do you have? Where do you like to speak? Where would you like to speak? Do you go around the world? That kind of thing.
Yes. So my overall vision, I want to speak around the world. I love traveling. So I want to speak around the world. Right now, though, I want to focus on really maximizing schools and really pouring into the local community that I have right now. Because right now, I'm so good online, techie, I got everything online, but I really have to stretch myself and get uncomfortable to approach schools in my local area, and also not only schools, but also learning how to leverage companies as well. Because when you can start speaking at companies, you can start training teams, you get generously compensated as well. So those two things, schools and companies within my area, is really where I'm pouring into and focusing on. I think it was last weekend, I ordered business cards, trying to, do something, because it's so easy to get stuck online. It's so easy to connect with people online, to have all these relationships long distance, but you have to connect with people in person in your community as well.
Definitely. And one of the best ways to do that, especially for entrepreneurs that we've found, is to go to conferences and events where you're learning and you're there to learn, but you're also there to connect with people who have similar mindsets. So speaking of that, it seems now, because we can appreciate your dilemma in speaking, to educational institutions. You're going into high school where they're trying to get kids to think about going to college. That's the mill, that's the treadmill. And you can't, college is a huge need, but you can't go into college because you're saying, why I left college, right? And so then there's that dilemma. And so I think that a good niche for you to pursue more or further is to speak at entrepreneurial events. So apply to some of the major entrepreneurial conferences, because we do a lot of social media marketing, online publishing, website kind of development kind of conferences. So I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure there are some that are more geared just to entrepreneurs, where it is that you would be a motivational voice in the world of entrepreneurs, as well as an author, as well as there you go. So the podcast, you could speak at Podcast Movement, Podcasters Paradise. You could apply to speak at those places. In fact, podcast, the conference we're going to.
Podcast Movement.
Podcast Movement. They have a conference every summer, July, I think it is, June, close to you, Philadelphia this year. And they're taking applications for speakers. Yeah. So that would be a great one for you to apply for, because you're doing podcasting and you've got the entrepreneurial angle, and a good bit about the online world.
And it's easier to sort of, I guess, change somebody's mind who's already on a trajectory of a different path.
Right.
So entrepreneurs already, at least on the entrepreneurial and business side, they're already thinking, hey, you know, the 9-to-5 route isn't what I want to do personally. And so
Right.
it might be easier to kind of crack the education nut of like, hey, well, if you didn't want to do the 9-to-5, are you sure your kid wants to do the 9-to-5?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and even like there are some really big conferences like used to be Freedom Fastlane with Ryan Moran, and now it's called capitalism.com. And while it might not seem initially a fit from the standpoint of, you know, it's primarily e-commerce, but it's about people who are building empires, you know, and mega businesses, and, you know, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars go to that room. But those people have kids. And a lot of these entrepreneurs in the realms that we've you know, hung out and met people and know people, you know, they're struggling with that to some extent as parents, knowing that, hey, you know, what I'm doing, I didn't learn in school. And yet I have to send my kids off to school. So what's with that, and what are the solutions? And, you know, they would love to hear from, and they would love their kids to hear from inspiring young people like you who are on the entrepreneurial track, who are self-motivated, disciplined, and positive, so that they can have, because otherwise they have their friends to show their kids, you know, but who wants to see mom and dad's friends? Do they want to see millennials and their peers doing the same thing?
Yes, that's so good. And I did apply for podcast movement, so I'm waiting. I did. Like as soon as they opened up, I was like, you know. But yeah, the entrepreneurial events for sure. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to target schools because of, you know, my path. However, if I don't go in with my Why I Quit College to Learn book, and I position it in a different way, that, you know, will bring value to the kids and they can see that, I think that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And yeah, very good to reframe that into how it could work. And your second book will certainly be also a potential shoe in the door in that realm as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And, you know, I think that there's such a need for inspiring voices,
Yeah.
you know, to young voices, especially to inspire other young people that, you know, sometimes they might just overlook that part that they are not comfortable with, you know, in the title in the book, for those that can't, you know, quite swing that. So yeah, I think that your opportunities. So what do you need? Like, what is it that you need now? Just more exposure, more your name out there in speaking circles? What kind of thing?
Yeah, so I need opportunities to speak offline. That's what I need right now. And building those connections that can get me in the rooms in front of the kids or the companies and things like that. So I can really start maximizing those things. And so it's up to me to go out and to meet people and to have conversations and to leave the house, you know, and do all those things.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it step by step so that I can get those type of results, because I love, you know, the interaction with people. You know, I love being able to see people, to hug people, to smile, to dance, you know, like I love that interaction. So to get more of that is what I'm working on. But yeah, I need those opportunities to speak and those people that can help me go into those rooms.
Had you been on local media?
Local media.
Yeah, like the TV stations and that.
Oh, no. And this is another thing too, like radio and all of that.
Yeah.
Like who do I speak to? Where do I go? Like all of that
Okay, so first, they love local stories. Local news. Start small with your local TV stations.
Okay.
Send them a book, you know, a card, like a flyer of your podcast, whatever, you know, you have, like your media kit. Make a media kit. Do you have one? If you don't, make.
Okay, yeah, I made one online. Like it has like an intro video, testimonials, like me speaking, like what I do and all
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
So yeah.
So you have, so the link to that, you know, just print that out, so it'll have the link and they can go to and, you know, follow up with an email. So now you're sending them in the mail, you know, to like the editor, the entertainment editor, or the like news story editor. Just look in you can find all those information online, you know, like the contact people online. You send it to them in the mail, and then they're looking for stories of interest, like interest stories.
Okay.
And so they're looking for you, and they just don't know about you yet. And
And
so
if you can target stations that air to younger demographics too, just because that's an avenue that you want to pursue for sure.
Yeah.
And so casing out the networks that stream to the younger, of course, a lot of those are going to be like on podcasts or, the more millennial things of listening to the, podcast shows or YouTube shows or whatever, but also there are still radio stations that younger people listen to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. There's one, are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes.
Okay. So we don't like his language, but we like his message, and his positive motivation otherwise. But he is often, there's a show that he's on, that radio show, The Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
It's, are you familiar
I think it's in
with
New
that?
York or
You're
something.
familiar with that one? Anyway, we can post these links, and we're carrying this conversation on a little bit longer live and like as a part of the podcast, because these kind of things that might help you could also help our audience, because regardless of whether they're public speaking, it still applies to any creative who is seeking to get your work out into the world. And that applies to like local news stories. So here's the thing, you start out with the local, all the little local stations, radio and TV, you make the initial contact, you send an email, you do a phone call, you send the book, out to them. And then you're going to get on one, and then you'll get on the next. And then now you have established that you can do media, right? And so then the next like town away kind of station might want to cover you for their area kind of thing.
And these networks are like hungry for people, not only who are young and doing different things, but have a somewhat controversial story in terms of, I quit college. I quit college to learn. That's not like a super out there concept. I mean, it's getting more widespread, but it's a hot topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then when you do go and the other thing is when you do go and speak, I know you have your promotional video, but it would be good to have more examples of you actually speaking on your promotional video, and have your sound bites coming out, things like from this clip and from yours, have someone piece that together for you or do it yourself, so that those are the kind of things, the sound reels that can be sent to people who might want to hire you to speak as well. And that would really help.
Thank you so much. I love that. It's great. Yeah. And so I could just start like online and search like the local stations and the local TV.
Yeah. I like to start with the station that especially like if there's a station that your folks tune into or you tune into and the celebrities by name, kind of address it to them personally, handwritten, kind of thing, and then follow up with a call, because they're not only are they human and off camera just like you are off stage, but they like to connect with interesting and inspiring people doing good things in the world. So yeah, I think that's a really good thing. Keep us posted on how that goes.
I will for sure.
Awesome. Well, in closing, do you have any final advice on the concept that has helped you most in your journey to success?
Concept that's helped me. Well, I have this saying that I always keep in mind. Anytime that I do a video or I do a podcast episode, I end with this phrase because it reminds me of my duty and my obligation while I'm here. And it's just 3 simple statements. The first one is be great, to not settle for an average life, to not settle for an average relationship, to not settle for an average way of living, to understand that you are deserving of greatness and of abundance and of freedom, and to operate from that space and to demand it as well, because no one's going to hand it to you, but you have to work for it. And then the second thing is to be awesome, right? So whatever your gift is, whatever your art is, however you are a creative or a creator, be awesome at that and to really master it. Once you master that, people will start coming to you and asking you and viewing you as the expert. So whatever you decide to do it boldly and confidently and be awesome at it. And the last one is to do you every single day, right? To be unapologetic about who you are and what you believe in and what you stand for. Because there's this like little saying in this song that it says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? So you have to understand who you are and be comfortable in your own skin, right? To know that you are beautiful, that you're brilliant, that you are amazing, that you are capable, you know, that your dreams are possible. All of those things, you have to be confident and comfortable in that. And those reminders have kept me, you know, on my path as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. Wow, that's fantastic, beautiful, and what a great note to end on. I was getting chills as you were saying that, because it's so, you know, there's so much behind all of that. So thank you for bringing your light into the world and your wisdom into the world and sharing it with us in this podcast.
You were great and awesome.
Yeah, you are great and awesome, and you do you very well, and the world needs more of you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Thanks for inviting me. I love any opportunity that I can share what I have, my value. I love to do that. So thanks so much for inviting me. It was such a great time.
You're welcome. For us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.